Hello and welcome. Namaste from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up over the next 30 minutes. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer holds a meeting with US President Donald Trump at Turnberry in Scotland. Thailand and Cambodia agree to an immediate and unconditional ceasefire following talks in Malaysia. Talks facilitated by Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh says Operation Sindoor achieved its military objectives. Over 100 terrorists killed. Operation to resume in case of any misadventure from Pakistan side. And India's Divya Deshmukh wins the FIDE Women's World Cup 2025. Beats compatriot Koneru Hampi in tie breaks to claim the title in Georgia. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and US President Donald Trump met in Scotland on Monday. The mini-summit at Turnberry was intended primarily to focus on the continuing problem of steel tariffs imposed by President Trump and other aspects of the trade deal the two signed last month. On the other hand, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is also on the agenda. The US President has said that he and Starmer would be discussing a lot about Israel. Starmer is expected to press the US to help deliver a lasting ceasefire and will applaud Trump's recent efforts with Qatar and Egypt to end the fighting. Senior US and Chinese negotiators led by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Vice Premier He Lifeng will be meeting in Stockholm on Monday to address economic disputes fueling the US-China trade war. China has also said it hopes for reciprocity and mutual respect in trade talks with the US. Facing a 12th of August deadline, the talks aim to extend a tariff truce with US tariffs on Chinese goods at 30% and China's at 10%. The US seeks greater export opportunities to reduce its $295.5 billion trade deficit with China, while China demands easing of US tariffs, including a 20% fentanyl-related levy. Without agreement, tariffs could exceed 100%, disrupting global supply chains. Russia on Monday criticized the trade deal reached between the European Union and the United States, saying that it would deal a heavy blow to the European industry. The agreement clinched on Sunday between US President Donald Trump and EU Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen would see the EU's exports to the US taxed at 15%. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said that such an approach will lead to further deindustrialization of Europe.
Such an approach will lead to the future deindustrialization of Europe, to the flow of investment from Europe to the United States. And, of course, this will be a very heavy blow, first of all, to energy prices, the outflow of investment for European industry and European agriculture.
Well, the stakes were high with a looming 1st of August deadline and $1.9 trillion transatlantic trading relationship on the line. Finally, there's been a US-EU trade deal. US President Donald Trump clinched a major trade deal with the European Union, setting a 15% tariff on key European exports to America. Let's dive into some of the details of this deal.
Many European businesses will breathe a sigh of relief after the leaders agreed the 27-country bloc will face a baseline levy of 15% instead of a threatened 30%, but the deal will not satisfy everyone. What did EU-US agree? Both sides confirmed there will be a 15% across-the-board rate on a majority of EU goods, with bilateral tariff exemptions on some products. The deal will bring relief for the bloc's auto sector, employing around 13 million people. A 15% levy will remain costly for German automakers, but it is manageable. EU also committed to buy $750 billion of liquefied natural gas, oil and nuclear fuels from the United States, split equally over 3 years to replace Russian energy sources. And it will pour $600 billion more in additional investments in the United States. Any exemptions? 15% rate applied across most sectors, including semiconductors and pharmaceuticals, a critical export for Ireland, which the bloc has sought to protect. Trump in April launched probes that could lead to significantly steeper tariffs on the two key sectors, warning this month he could slap 200% levies on drugs. Brussels and Washington agreed a bilateral tariff exemption for key goods including aircraft, certain chemicals, semiconductor equipment, certain agricultural products and critical raw materials. What's next? Further negotiations on steel and aluminium may be brought up soon given the Trump government's imposition of 50% tariff on them globally. As per the EU Commission President, wine and spirits remain other aspects that have to be sorted out in the next days. Bureau Report, DD India.
So the EU and the US now have a trade deal. Most European exports will now face a 15% tariff in the United States. Well, joining us from Berlin with more on the agreement and how it has been received in Germany, for that matter, is DW's correspondent Chiponda Chimbelu. Hi Chiponda, what can you tell us about the details of this tariff deal in the first place?
Thanks for having me. Well, this deal does end a months-long transatlantic trade standoff. European exports, of course, will now face 50% tariffs, so the EU will be able to avoid higher tariffs of 30% on all EU goods, which US President Trump had threatened at the end of May. Now, for most European exports, tariffs will rise by 5% from the 10% reciprocal tariffs that have been in place since April. But cars and car parts which have been facing higher tariffs of 25%, will now have lower tariffs. And that is some good news for the auto industry because they at least won't be facing higher tariffs. Now, steel and aluminum, on the other hand, will continue to face the 50% tariff rate. Pharmaceuticals are excluded from the tariff deal. But the trade deal, of course, is not quite done and dusted because all EU member states will need to approve it.
And let's now get the big picture, Chiponda. How will the deal affect the European economy?
Well, while there is some relief that Europe won't have to face the 30% tariff rate, there is also disappointment that the EU has given in to what Washington wants. Now, a French minister called the deal unbalanced. And the consensus here in Germany, at least with the press, is that Europe has made itself smaller by accepting this deal. This agreement shows that Washington doesn't view the EU as an equal partner. The EU just didn't agree to a higher overall tariff rate. The European Union also agreed to buy $750 billion in energy and invest $600 billion in the United States, in addition to what it already invests there. Many will be, of course, asking what the EU is getting out of this trade deal, apart from a de-escalation in the trade conflict. But this, of course, was also about geopolitics. Europe needs the United States to help it support Ukraine against Russian aggression.
Well, yes, that kind of support is required. Well, let's see what happens. Chiponda Chimbelu, thank you for joining us from Berlin. Now, French industry ministry has said on Monday that trade agreement between EU and the US is unbalanced, as Chiponda mentioned. Minister Marc Ferracci added more is needed to be done in terms of rebalancing Europe's trade relations with the US.
Some sectors that are important for European industry, such as the aeronautics and the spirits sector, should be exempted. We will have the details of this deal within the day. Then a technical negotiation will take place in the coming weeks. But we have to admit that this is an unbalanced deal that should encourage us to continue working towards rebalancing trade between Europe and the United States.
Malaysia's Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has announced that Thailand and Cambodia have agreed to a ceasefire, unconditional ceasefire. Anwar said when opening a press conference alongside the Thai and Cambodian leaders that there would be an immediate and unconditional ceasefire with effect from midnight tonight. This is final, end quote. Thai Acting Prime Minister Phumtham Vechayachai and Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet and Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim on Monday held a joint news conference in Putrajaya, Malaysia, following the 5 days of deadly border clashes. The talks, hosted by ASEAN Chair Anwar, addressed a conflict that killed 35 people and displaced over 260,000 of them as well. The ceasefire includes a military commanders meeting on Tuesday.
Prime Minister Hun Manet and Acting Prime Minister Phumtham Wechayachai have expressed their positions and willingness to immediate ceasefire and return to normalcy. Both Cambodia and Thailand reached a common understanding as follows. 1. An immediate and unconditional ceasefire with effect from 24 hours local time, midnight, on 28th July 2025, tonight. This is a vital first step towards a de-escalation and the restoration of peace and security.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has denied criticism, saying there is no starvation in Gaza as Israel allowed in aid throughout the war. He was speaking at a Christian conference in Jerusalem.
But the main thing that I want to stress is the importance of winning the battle for truth. And that is a battle that we fought even as we speak now. Israel is presented as though we are applying a campaign of starvation in Gaza. What a bold-faced lie. There is no policy of starvation in Gaza, and there is no starvation in Gaza. We enable humanitarian aid throughout the duration of the war to enter Gaza, otherwise there would be no Gazans. And what has interdicted the supply of humanitarian aid is one force, Hamas. Again, the reversal of truth. Hamas robs, steals this humanitarian aid, and then accuses Israel of not supplying it.
Now, Iran on Monday said that its military capabilities were not up for negotiations after France called for a comprehensive deal with Tehran that covers its missile program. In media briefing, a Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Bakai said that regarding matters related to our defense capabilities, there will absolutely be no discussion. Iran generally refers to all military activities, including its ballistic missile program, as defensive.
Regarding our defensive capabilities, I believe that Islamic Republic of Iran and the Iranian nation are today even more determined than they were a month ago to safeguard all their assets, including their means of defense against foreign aggression and hostility. Regarding matters related to our defense capabilities, there will absolutely be no discussion.
Still to come in this edition of DD India Live. Russia and North Korea resume first commercial flights between their capitals in decades. And heavy rains intensify around Beijing and surrounding provinces. 41 rivers across the country flooded. Also, England beats Spain 3-1 in penalties to win UEFA Women's Euro 2025 title.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, the monsoon session of India's Parliament is underway. The Lok Sabha, or the lower house, is holding a special discussion on India's strong, successful and decisive Operation Sindoor in response to terrorist attack in Pahalgam. Initiating the debate in the lower house, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh emphasized that Operation Sindoor was a decisive and effective demonstration of India's stance against terrorism, adding that the military operation was an effective and well-coordinated strike against 9 terror sites.
हमारी सेनाओं द्वारा की गई वेल कोऑर्डिनेटेड स्ट्राइक्स ने 9 टेररिस्ट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर टारगेट्स को प्रिसीजन के साथ, सटीकता के साथ हिट किया। और इस सैन्य कार्रवाई में एक अनुमान के अनुसार 100 से अधिक आतंकवादी, मैं बहुत संभल कर बोल रहा हूं अध्यक्ष महोदय, हमारी फिगर गलत ना होने पाए, फिगर इससे बहुत अधिक है, 100 से अधिक आतंकवादी, उनके ट्रेनर, उनके प्रशिक्षक, उनके हैंडलर, लश्कर-ए-तोयबा और हिजबुल मुजाहिदीन जैसे आतंकवादी संगठनों से संबंधित थे। ये वही आतंकी संगठन हैं जिन्होंने पाकिस्तान की सेना और ISI का जिन्हें खुला समर्थन प्राप्त है।
The minister added that Operation Sindoor showcased tri-services synergy.
ऑपरेशन सिंदूर ट्राई सर्विसेज कोऑर्डिनेशन का एक बेमिसाल उदाहरण था। जब भारतीय वायुसेना ने आसमान से हमले किए, हमारी थल सेना ने जमीन पर मोर्चा संभाल लिया। भारतीय नौसैनिकों ने पाकिस्तान को यह साफ संदेश दिया कि हम समुद्र से लेकर जमीन तक पाकिस्तान के हर महत्वपूर्ण ठिकानों पर प्रहार करने में न केवल सक्षम हैं, बल्कि हम तैयार हैं।
And Rajnath Singh added that overall politico-military objective of Operation Sindoor was to punish Pakistan for fighting a proxy war in the form of terrorism.
महोदय, ऑपरेशन सिंदूर का ओवरऑल पॉलिटिको मिलिट्री ऑब्जेक्टिव यह था कि आतंकवाद के रूप में प्रॉक्सी वार लड़ रहे पाकिस्तान को सजा दी जाए, और इसी वजह से आर्म फोर्सेस को पूरी आजादी दी गई थी कि वे अपने टारगेट खुद चुनें और करारा जवाब दें। और इस ऑपरेशन का उद्देश्य कोई भी युद्ध छेड़ना नहीं था, बल्कि फोर्स के डिमॉन्स्ट्रेटिव यूज से एडवर्सरी को झुकने के लिए मजबूर करना था।
And Congress leader Gaurav Gogoi participated in the special discussion at the lower house on Operation Sindoor as well. Contact established in general area of Lidwas, operation in progress. End quote. Also, additional reinforcements have been rushed to the area as the operation is still on. Now, US President Donald Trump on Monday said he was reducing the 50-day deadline he gave Russia over its war in Ukraine, saying he is disappointed with Russian President Vladimir Putin. To quote Trump, "I am disappointed in President Putin." He said these words speaking alongside British Prime Minister Keir Starmer ahead of their meeting in Scotland. To quote Donald Trump again, "I am going to reduce that 50 days that I gave him to a lesser number." End quote. Now, a Russian passenger jet landed at Pyongyang's international airport on Monday as the countries resumed the first commercial flights between their capitals in decades. Russia and North Korea have pulled closer over the last 1 year, with Pyongyang sending weapons and troops to aid Moscow's conflict with Ukraine, likely in exchange for technical assistance. Russia previously announced the Moscow-Pyongyang route would be serviced once per month. In a major shift in Ukraine's military arsenal, as indigenously produced UAR-15 assault rifle is set to replace the Soviet-era AK-74 rifles. Military experts and soldiers have praised the UAR-15 for its practicality, accuracy and adaptability to modern warfare conditions. A soldier noted that the UAR-15 is more handy, lighter and more user-friendly than the Kalashnikov rifle. This shift aligns with Ukraine's push to adopt NATO standard weaponry. The UAR-15 rifle is nearly entirely produced domestically, with all major components manufactured within Ukraine, except for the barrels, which are imported from the United States. Torrential rains hit Beijing and nearby regional areas on Monday, triggering flash floods and landslides that forced over 4,400 evacuations. Authorities issued the city's highest level flood alert, with warning of worsening conditions overnight. Forecasts predicted over 6 inches of rain in 6 hours, with some areas possibly receiving double that amount. European stocks climbed to a 4-month high on Monday, led by auto and pharma gains. The pan-European stock 600 index rose 0.8%. Automobile stocks were also boosted on the day, with Porsche and Volkswagen gaining 1.6 and 1.9% each respectively. The rally followed a the EU-US trade deal, which imposes a 15% tariff on EU imports and commits $600 billion in EU investments in US energy and defense. Let's now talk sports, where India's Divya Deshmukh has clinched her maiden FIDE Women's Chess World Cup title by defeating compatriot Koneru Hampi in Georgia. In an all-Indian final, Divya edged out Hampi 1.5 to 0.5 to become Grandmaster. The contest entered into the tie breaks after both classic matches ended in a stalemate. The first rapid game was drawn, but Divya won the second game with the black pieces to seal the victory. Divya had already secured her spot in the candidates tournament. Now with this win, she becomes the first Indian woman to win the FIDE Women's World Cup and earns a Grandmaster title in the process as well. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also congratulated Divya on X. He's written, I quote, "A historic final featuring two outstanding Indian chess players. Proud of the young Divya Deshmukh on becoming FIDE Women's World Cup champion 2025. Congratulations to her for this remarkable feat, which will inspire several youngsters. Koneru Hampi has also displayed immense prowess throughout the championship. Best wishes to both players for their future endeavours." End quote. England defeated Spain 3-1 in a thrilling penalty shootout to win their second UEFA Women's Euro 2025 title on Sunday. Spain dominated possession and made the breakthrough in the 25th minute. However, England levelled in the 57th minute with Alicia Russo finding the back of the net. Both the teams could not find another goal before the end of normal time, and the story continued through extra time. The Spaniards got the shootout off to a good start, but England keeper Hannah Hampton stepped up and saved consecutive shots to put England in the driving seat. Chloe Kelly finally fired the decisive spot kick, leading England to a thrilling win. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. Just scan the QR code on the screen and download the app right away. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.